What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
So, Nick, Eddie Hearn proposed an interesting idea on Ariel Helwani's podcast just a couple of days ago. He wants to remake the Rumble in the Jungle boxing match. He wants to do this one in Africa, and he wants to have Francis Ngannou fight Anthony Joshua, his prize fighter. Now, originally, AJ, when presented with the idea to fight Francis, according to Eddie, said he's not interested in a gimmick fight and it would just be silly, and he's only interested in fighting people that are real legit contenders or title holders. Well, Francis Ngannou proved very much that he is not a gimmick in the heavyweight division, and so now he's AJ's sort of turning his tune a little bit and looking to maybe do this fight with Francis. First of all, I think it would be a mega pay-per-view event to see those two stars, those two heavyweights in there fighting each other. But I take issue with what Eddie Hearn said. He said this fight would not be close. Anthony Joshua would get in there and finish Francis within 6 rounds, and he would school him the entire time. I personally don't think that AJ could have done as well against Tyson Fury as Francis did. What do you make of it?
Matt, Eddie Hearn is a smart guy, and he knows exactly how to insert himself into the biggest motions that are taking place in the boxing world, which there's not that many of them, but he seems to be attached to pretty much all of them. Anthony Joshua's big paydays are coming to an end, and they're coming rapidly, quickly. And it's just so funny to me how they can contradict themselves so much in one little statement, right? So he says, AJ doesn't want to fight a guy that would be a gimmick fight. He doesn't want to fight a boxer that's not a real boxer. He'd rather go fight the best in the world. Well, when he fights the best in the world, he doesn't get his hand raised, generally. And then they go out and watch Francis Ngannou fight Tyson Fury and beat Tyson Fury. He doesn't get his hand raised, but everybody knows he won the fight. He won the story. He won over the fans. In my book, Tyson Fury lost that fight, and Francis Ngannou won. And then you see that, and you say, you know what? Now I do want that fight, but I still think he's a gimmick. But I don't want to fight gimmicks. And it just sort of looks weird. It looks like the highest level of a cash grab that I've ever seen. And I know that Anthony Joshua is a star, especially in the portion of the world that he comes from. And I believe that would translate over to Africa. If you could get some big, pomp and circumstances around this. Rumble in the Jungle 2. We've got a guy who was born in Cameroon, and he worked his way up and moved over to France and then got sent back to Africa a couple of different times and made it over. He couldn't forge his path in boxing, so he had to go MMA because he wanted to get to the top of the world in some sport. And then he was able to finally fulfill his dreams of being a boxing fighter. And if it weren't for dirty, rotten judges and a dirty, rotten promoter, he would have been the lineal heavyweight champion of the world, beating the pound-for-pound best boxer on the planet in Tyson Fury. But of course, that's not how this story goes. And I really do see Francis Ngannou injecting some new life into the top of the heavyweight division. For the last couple of years, it's felt like Tyson Fury sits above as the king, and everybody else is directly below him and doesn't really stand a chance. And I think that, we could probably make an argument to get AJ in there with Tyson Fury, and it wouldn't be competitive. But Francis Ngannou is just different enough. He doesn't have that clean, pure boxing style. He doesn't really have the same sort of entries and exits that these lifetime boxers have, but he has a ton of power, and he can really put them on notice when he does start to crack a little bit. And I just think for Eddie Hearn and AJ to call this fight a gimmick is laughable, because just a few moments ago they were saying they didn't want to fight a gimmick, but now they're saying they do want to fight this guy, but at the same time he won't be able to go 6 rounds. So it sounds a bit messy to me, but I hope it happens, mostly so Francis can line his pockets.
Yeah, and make no mistake about it, Francis Ngannou can definitely last more than 6 rounds against AJ. I think the question should be turned the other way. Can AJ last 6 rounds against Francis?
That's
if
right.
you look at what Francis did against Tyson Fury is the clean, say what you will about him, say what you will about his preparation, he's the cleanest technical boxer in the heavyweight division, him and Usyk.
Not even close.
Wilder's got a lot of power, and nobody disputes that. AJ's very athletic, and nobody disputes that. But when you talk about who's the most skilled technical boxer in the division, it's Tyson Fury, far and away. And Francis Ngannou confused the hell out of Tyson Fury. And Tyson, you don't have to take my word for it, Tyson said that out of his own mouth. That was the most confusing night of my life. I couldn't find my entries on this guy. So to think that a guy who's far inferior in boxing skill, I'm talking about AJ, compared to Tyson Fury, that he would somehow be able to just school on Francis Ngannou. I just simply don't see it. I actually think Francis Ngannou would win that fight, and I think that damn sure if Andy Ruiz can knock out Anthony Joshua, boy oh boy can Francis Ngannou.
100%. Anthony Joshua is not the fighter that he thinks he is, and he's not even the fighter that the world thought he was a couple of years ago. Of course, he's stubbed his toe a few times, but he is a compelling character in the sport, and I think he might as well go get these big money fights as often as he can for the 3 or 4 more years that he's going to be relevant. But if you're a heavyweight boxer and you're in the top 5, you should be calling out Francis Ngannou. You should be talking about Francis. You should be not downplaying what he just did in there. You should be saying, look, I want to fight the best in the world, and I just watched Tyson Fury get his ass kicked by a guy named Francis Ngannou who's never done it before. So for the sake of boxing, for the sake of the sport that I grew up loving and I turned into a profession, I have to go beat this guy. And not only do I have to beat him on the judges' scorecards, I need to get him out of there before the 12 rounds are up. I need to knock this guy out and send him back to MMA, to whatever promotion he wants to go to. This is not good for our sport if he can come in here and compete with us, and better yet, steal all the biggest moments from our king, from the heavyweight, the lineal champion of the world, and Tyson Fury, who far and away, everybody agrees, is the most talented heavyweight on the planet right now. And he wasn't able to do anything productive against Tyson Fury, against Francis Ngannou. That's going to leave a lot of people to wonder, just how good could Deontay Wilder do? Just how good could Andy Ruiz or Anthony Joshua do? I tend to think that Francis Ngannou could upset a couple of these guys and really shake things up at the top of heavyweight. And I'd love to see him get a rematch with Tyson Fury, but I do feel like Usyk versus Fury is going to happen first, and maybe one other fight for Francis is going to have to happen before that.
Yeah, and I love this Rumble in the Jungle. I mean, yeah. I have said a lot about AJ, but I don't dislike AJ. No. I'm just speaking from purely what I saw Francis do against Tyson and what I've seen AJ do recently. I think the fight's a heck of a lot closer than Eddie Hearn thinks it is. Now, I understand Eddie Hearn's also a businessman,
right,
and he's trying to drum up some excitement on the boxing end because everybody's kind of had the wind taken out of their sails who are the pure boxing fans, so he wants to inject some excitement and try to put this mega fight on. And make no mistake about it, whether it's competitive or not, that is a mega fight. Francis Ngannou versus AJ in a boxing ring in Africa, that does crazy numbers. So I understand Eddie's standpoint and why he's trying to pine for this now. I just think that AJ might be biting off more than he can chew.
I totally agree.